that's easy. It's Jesus. It's simple. The Bible says it. I don't know why you guys are trying so hard to figure it out, but maybe one day they'll come around to it. So I'm going to give you guys a warning. I'm going to have a Hawaii reference, okay? It's my last one. And I'll explain it in a second why I've got to do it, because I was going over this sermon with Mallory, who's sick, so she's not here. She doesn't have COVID. It's okay. Her throat hurts. She's like, I can't believe you're going to use another Hawaii reference in church, like your second in a row. I'm like, that's pretty much all I have. So after this, we're good with Hawaii references. But I was talking with Wes. He's preaching next week. He has to preach a class he has to preach a sermon for his class, and he's doing the parables. And I'm getting ready to begin a series on trees, which is pretty funny because I was talking to Caleb and I said, I've been really weirdly fascinated with trees of the Bible because of all of the different trees, all the different words, all that's arid. Your trees are few and far between. So when the Bible talks about them, it's important. I'm not going to preach a sermon on that right now. That's in this weird Sunday in there. So they had this rule. They were saying, listen, don't eat the mangoes from this mango tree. And I thought it was a great rule, but very hard to follow because the mangoes look delicious and they're nice and plump. And if you go to the grocery store, they're like $1.50 per mango that will eventually kill you. Probably it won't kill you, but it may make you grow extra limbs or eyeballs or something. And at first bite, it's delicious, right? You can eat this mango. There's nothing about that mango that's different. It just tastes sweet. It's delicious. You're good. But over time, I equate to two different types of mango tree. So you have this is the on-base mango tree. So if you hear me refer to on-base mango tree, it's the one that kills you, okay? Bad tree. This is the off-base mango tree. It is awesome. It will not kill you. It's delicious. It produces life and goodness and all these good things. But I think we coexist in a world where we're always confronted with two different types of people. People whose fruits are delicious and good for you, and people whose fruits may look good, but they're ultimately poisonous to us and will one day take our lives and kill us. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And Jesus' Sermon on the Plain, he really gives us an instruction about, because really the whole goal of discipleship, like we talked about, is to go out and to duplicate yourself, to make disciples. It's not so much to say, listen, I love God so much. Worship is one thing, but Jesus says, you know what, if you're going to be my disciple, there's going to be a follow-on to that, and that's going to be to become a disciple who lives for me, but also another disciple who makes more disciples. And the reason why this is important is because we make the kind of people that we are. That's very bad grammar, I'm sorry for that, but you get the point. So these trees, they drop seeds, right? This mango tree on base drops trees, and it grows more mango trees. There's actually a few that are there. It's also poison. Meanwhile, this tree keeps dropping good, delicious seeds. And so destruction was complete. So I'm sure you've heard this sermon before. That's the end of it. And you've heard all about it. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So in the first two verses 43 through 45, this is what I was just talking about at the beginning. Jesus lays down a call to his believers, to his followers, to his disciples to check your fruit. And I kind of explained this already, but what Jesus means is the fruit is the product of our lives. I like to think of ourselves as a factory, and we're producing something. We have an outcome, a cause and effect, goodness. Bad disciples produce badness. He says it's impossible for a bad disciple, or as we say, on-base mango trees, to produce non-poisonous mangoes, and it's impossible for good disciples, so off-base mango trees, to produce poisonous mangoes. Of course, good disciples are sinners. We're going to make mistakes, but ultimately the product of our lives is a good thing, and is the thing that produces goodness. So no matter who we say we are, no matter who we want to be, or the image that we hope to project to others, I put that on there. I made it a couple weeks ago. There's a word in verse 45 that I think is really helpful here. I'm sure we've all been to military ceremonies, right? And there's this random person, they're called the proffer. And I always like to, but it's not true, they do care, because the proffer is the person that offers up the gifts, right? The awards, the decks, all the things we do. And I think that's that we want to be. A quick word about this thing. I don't know if we have any Monty Python fans in the house. Anyone know this scene? I've been watching you, ma'am. Your fruit is not really pleasing, right? It's not the fruit that disciples produce. I think there's a time and a place for accountability, and that's where that fits in. But in this call that Jesus is giving to his disciples, is first and foremost a call to check yourself before you wreck yourself, right? To make sure that it's ultimately true. I don't know if you've ever has anyone ever driven into the state of California before? I'm sure you have, right? And how do you get in there? What's the first thing that they do? There's their agricultural checkpoint, right? And they go through all of your stuff. They open your trunk. They go through everything. They want to make sure you don't have a fruit or a blueberry or anything in there because it's gonna poison everything else. We are not the Department of Agriculture for the state of California. We're individual believers struggling together, doing this thing together. So my question is we know the goodness is a product of our lives, but what is the goodness? What is the product? What is actually the tangible, no-kidding behavior that Jesus expects you? Pray for those who mistreat you. Bless those who curse you. Don't retaliate when you are wrong. That's a hard one, right? I watch when you are wrong. Give freely of your stuff. Don't go ballistic. If someone takes or breaks your stuff, that's an important one too, I think. Don't judge. Show kindness and mercy. Let wrong things go. Forgive each other. And have patience. This is not an all-inclusive list, but this is just a quick summary. And these are things that it's not just unique to Jesus. That would have been weird for people to do in that culture. You know, it's an ancient culture. A lot of eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Verse 45 is my least favorite verse in the whole Bible because it's too convicting for me. I don't know if you've read that. I think even when I read it, I was like, I probably shouldn't read this out loud, but I did anyway because we're about to see it in verse 46. Jesus really expects us to do the stuff that he says. It's amazing. So I've often read the commentaries, like scholars who are biblical scholars, and I've heard it from preachers and teachers and people that I respect, and they're like, Jesus was just teaching us an ideal. He was giving us a philosophy or a thing to shoot for in your life. He doesn't expect you to do all of these things. It's impossible. But as we read God's word, and I think as we read the Gospels, and as we read Jesus' very words in verse 46, he expects us to do those things as his believers. But verse 45, he says, "For his mouth speaks, but the words do betray the true substance of our hearts." And I think sometimes I say some things in my life that I'm not going to repeat here because we're in church, but throughout the week, and I say, why did I say that? And I say, is that the kind of heart that I have? But it just betrays our heart and who we are. So I think it's really important as we're interacting with people throughout the week, and we know this to be true, but it's important that I remind my kids all the time, but the things that we say matter because it's really telling people who we are deep down inside and what it is that is in our hearts, the desires of our hearts, the things that drive us. So this is an easy thing. It's a constant process of checking what I'm saying and checking what I'm doing. And I really actually thought about this sermon when I was sitting in sapper training the other day, and I'm saying we're trying a lot to modify behavior, but really at the core what we need to do is modify the way, the true motives and desires of a person's heart, to change, to become the kinds of people that won't say and do bad things. And that's really what our job is, and it's really hard to achieve in this environment. Not in this environment, in the military environment, but I was thinking about that. Sorry, you don't care about that. But the outcome of our actions and the very words that we speak on a daily basis to those around us. And I think true disciples produce good fruit, and it can be evident, and we can be confident. So if we are looking at our life and we're seeing the fruit that we produce, we can be confident that we have built a solid and strong foundation that is ready for the storms of life when it comes. Restful. To allow wrongs to go and just to love and show uncanny grace, Lord, and self-sacrificial love.
Come thou fount of every blessing, tune my heart to sing thy praise. Streams of mercy ever cease me, call for songs of loudest praise. Teach me some melodious song, sung by flaming tongues above. Praise the Lamb. Here's my heart, take and seal it for I want to wonder, Lord, I feel it, want to read the fire. Here's my heart, take and seal it for here's my heart, take and seal it for thy courts above. And here's my heart, Lord, take and seal it for thy courts above.
That's probably like my all-time favorite song. I don't know. Can't write about that song. Hey, Wes is preaching next weekend, so bring your tomatoes to eat. It's going to be so enriching. Hey, as a benediction, I'm not going to say any words.